Today I will tell you about a story, a scary experience that I went through. It started on a winter day at the end of 2010, 1 month before I went to Thailand. At this time, I had just set foot in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. But before getting into the story, I will tell everyone a few quick things about me. I am a boy born and raised in Haiphong province in Vietnam. My family is just ordinary people, no one follows the profession of shamans or teachers, but I don't understand why I can see things that others cannot see. All I know is that I've had that ability since I was a little kid. I heard my grandmother and mother tell me that when I was 6 months old, my mother once carried me to play in the alley. In the alley near my house there is a small shrine. I don't know who that shrine worships, but to this day it is still there and is incense smoked very carefully. My mother carried me through that temple when I suddenly burst into tears. No amount of comfort my mother tried could make me stop crying. Afraid something would happen, my mother picked me up and ran home. When my family saw me crying, they tried everything they could, but I couldn't stop and cried even louder. At this time, an old lady from the neighborhood came to visit and saw this and said, "The baby is so plump." She carried him to the temple and the mandarins saw that he liked him, so they teased him. The whole family went to pay their respects to the mandarins, and then the mandarins supported them. Then after giving thanks, I stopped crying. But since then, I often see strange things. I tell everyone about it and everyone thinks it's a child's joke, so no one believes me. My dad also told me that when I was 5 years old, my parents had a big argument and he took me back to his hometown to live. In front of my house there is a long abandoned lot. Every night I go out there and play alone. My grandfather saw that several times and came out to take me into the house, then locked the door 2 or 3 more times, but at night I could still go out and play. Feeling suspicious, he hired someone to dig up the place where I often sat, and found a set of human bones underneath, which were the bones of a child. Every night I went to the same place to sit and play with that child. Then he didn't tell me what happened next. But the ability to see demons followed me. Until now. It's been a bit long, now I'll get to the main story. This story is completely true, it happened about 10 years ago. Maybe the place I used to go has changed a lot. But everything is still a concern for me. The story I would like to call is Room 404. That year I was a 19-year-old boy, an impulsive, aggressive youth, not afraid of heaven, not afraid of earth. The only fear was fear of ghosts. During an argument with my mother, I grabbed my pants. I ran away from home and the destination I chose was to hitchhike on a container truck into Ho Chi Minh City. When I arrived, I still had exactly 1 million VND in my pocket along with a backpack containing some clothes and identification documents. Wandering around looking for a job and a place to live but finding none. At night I don't know where to go. The only thought in my mind right now is to find a place to sleep. It's not possible to sleep on the street because I heard there's a lot of chaos here with immigrants coming here and it's not safe, so the best choice is a budget motel. I wandered around and asked the motorbike taxi drivers. They told me that in District 10, there were many affordable motels with affordable prices and clean rooms. After a while of searching, I turned to a budget motel called ABC. Looking from the outside, this motel seems to have just been newly built or renovated. Everything is very new, modern and, importantly, cheap. As I walked in, the receptionist girl who was resting stood up and greeted. "Hello, do you want to rent a room?" Are you staying by the hour or overnight? Nodding to greet the girl. I want to stay overnight. Do you have a room? The receptionist looked at me for a moment and then said, for the night, we only have rooms on the 3rd floor. There is a room on the 3rd floor that cannot be used because it is being repaired. If you don't mind, please lend me the documents so I can complete the procedures. Receiving the ID card from my hand, the receptionist took out a key and 2 remotes from the drawer. Then told me to follow her and take her to her room. Because there was no elevator, we had to climb the stairs. As I left, the receptionist said, all the rooms on the lower floor of my house are rented by the hour, so I'll just show you the room on the top floor. I'm sorry. My name is Lan. If you need anything, just call the phone in the room or go downstairs to look for it. Me. I hummed through it and finally went up to my room. Standing in front of the door of room 404, Lan unlocked the room, gave me only 2 remotes and then quickly ran downstairs. Her attitude made me feel a bit strange, but I thought maybe it was because no one was downstairs watching the house, so she just came down in a hurry. I didn't rush into the room, but looked around and saw that I was the only one on this floor. Opposite me is room 402, which is being repaired, while rooms 401 and 403 have the door open. Things in the room are scattered and no one is seen. Only room 404 has a locked door. Stepping into the room, in front of me was a very large grandfather clock hanging on the wall, and the clock hand now pointed to 23 o'clock. I looked around the room and saw that this room seemed to have just been renovated. The paint on the walls was still intact. Very new. From the door to the room, you have to go through the toilet to get completely inside. In the room there is a bed, a wardrobe, a table and chairs and a TV, but when I turn it on, it's full of flies and can't watch any channels. I threw my backpack on the bed, took out my clothes, then walked into the bathroom and didn't forget to take my phone with me to turn on music to relieve my sadness. Standing under the shower, enjoying the warm water flowing into my body, made me seem to forget everything. Closing my eyes to relax, mumbling along to the melody of the song playing on my phone, I was suddenly startled because there seemed to be some noise outside. The rustling sound was very close. I reached out to turn off the music on my phone and listened but couldn't hear anything anymore. Turning off the phone completely, I continued to flush the water when that noise rang again. Looks like someone is rummaging through something in the room, right? Thinking of this, I temporarily wrapped myself in a towel and ran out to check. The room was empty, all furniture was still in place. I went out to check the door lock to make sure, then went into the bathroom to get dressed. As soon as I stepped into the bathroom, that noise rang out again. This time it came very close to where I was standing. A cold feeling ran down my spine, and I turned around but I wasn't behind. Nothing. Everything fell into silence. After getting dressed, I felt a bit hungry. Looking in the refrigerator, there were only a few bottles of mineral water and some snacks. I was hungry and heard that there were many delicious late-night dishes in this city, so I decided to go down the road to find food. In the hallway the light was still on and I felt something wasn't quite right. The doors to rooms 401 and 403 were still open and the furniture was in disarray, so why are the doors now closed? Maybe someone just rented a room here, and that rustling sound just now could have been from those people. Thinking like that, I didn't pay attention anymore and went downstairs and onto the street to find food. Ho Chi Minh City at night is beautiful, The weather is cool and pleasant, not as hot as in the morning. After wandering quite far, I found a noodle shop. After eating, I returned to the motel and the receptionist was nowhere to be found. I called 3 times to no avail, so I reached for the key in the receptionist's pants and the reception desk drawer was still open. Then I saw the keys to rooms 401 and 403. There are 5 controllers in there with the numbers 401 and 403. So who closed the doors to those 2 rooms? Or the housekeeping staff? Or is that receptionist named Lan coming to rest in the middle of her shift? A series of questions appear in my mind right now. As I walked up to my room, I was thinking, and suddenly I was in front of the door. I opened the door to enter the room, but I paused for 2 or 3 seconds, and slowly backed away. The 2 doors of room 401 and 403 were not closed like before but were still open. The furniture was still in disarray like when I first came here. Could it be that I was dizzy just now, or is this motel haunted? Thinking about this, I suddenly felt cold. Consoling yourself is thinking nonsense. Ghosts only exist in nonsense stories told by our grandparents in the past. But in modern times we don't find ghosts. Calm yourself down and walk into your room, put your backpack in the closet, then go to bed and turn on the TV. Now you can watch it again. Lie down in bed, watch some stupid comedy shows on TV. Wandering around all day under the hot sun, I was tired so I fell asleep without even realizing it. While sleeping, I suddenly felt a burning sensation in my throat, then a severe pain in my intestines, as if someone was scratching me or pouring boiling water over me to cook it. The pain was excruciating but I couldn't move and couldn't open my eyes. I tried to scream loudly for help, but my throat was so burned that I couldn't make a sound. I could only mumble a few words and then became helpless. Using all my strength and survival instinct, I tried to struggle and scream, but at this moment I was able to stand up. Looking around, I saw that the room lights were still on, there was no one in the room, and the TV had been buzzing for a while now. Looking at the clock, it was now 1:30 a.m. I told myself I was so tired that I had nightmares. Go to sleep and wake up early tomorrow. Turn off the light and lie down. But now I don't understand why I can't sleep anymore. There seems to be something very strange going on here. As I lay deep in thought, the rustling sound rang out again. This time I was in the middle of the room so there was no way that sound could have come from this room. Turn on the light and approach the door. There is a small hole on the door to look out. People also call it the magic eye. I peeked in there to see if there was anything out there. But suddenly I remembered the horror movies I used to watch at home. Every time the main character looked there, a ghost would scare me, so I didn't dare look anymore and put my ear to the door to listen. But at this moment everything fell silent again. I listened for a while and didn't hear anything. So I went to bed and went to sleep. Laying down this time I fell asleep immediately and slept soundly. But again in sleep something was wrong. It seems like someone is sleeping behind me, but I'm the only one renting a room. I slowly opened my eyes and turned away. At this moment, it seemed like my soul was running away. Behind me, on the same bed as me, right next to me, there was another person, lying with his back to me and seemingly not breathing anymore. Gathering all my courage, I gently touched that person. That person's skin was cold and it seemed to be whiter than a normal person's. As soon as my hand touched it, the person slowly turned around. I screamed in terror and jumped out of bed. On my bed right now is not a person but a corpse, a woman's corpse. But it still moved. It turned towards me, its mouth vomited some milky liquid mixed with a little blood. It screamed and writhed as if it was in great pain when it died. It no longer had eyeballs, but instead had two black holes that were oozing out some thick liquid. The stench from there emanated strongly throughout the room. It rolled around on the bed, causing blood and black fluid to flow all over the white bed sheet, making everything even more terrifying. Moaning and gurgling as if wanting to call for help, but my throat couldn't make a sound that echoed throughout the room. The cry was very similar to the sound I made in the dream just now. I felt like I was petrified, standing there stunned, not knowing what to do now. Everything happening before my eyes is beyond the understanding of a young man like me. While I didn't know what to do, the phone rang as if to break the horror atmosphere going on here. I looked at my cell phone and it was at the head of the bed, an arm's length away from both me and the other child. I mustered up all my courage and quickly reached out to grab the phone, but the phone rang off, and there was no missed call notification. Looking up at the bed and seeing that the devil had disappeared, I woke up and rushed towards the door. After struggling to open the door, I quickly ran out and looked back at the room, but didn't see anything strange anymore. I immediately ran downstairs to ask about what had just happened and would check out. But halfway through the trip, I suddenly remembered that my money, belongings, and room key were all in the room. Now without those things you can't check out. If you don't have money, even if you want to rent a room somewhere else, you won't be able to. After pondering for a long time, I took a risk and ran into the room to try to get everything quickly before that thing appeared again. In the game, I can still do that. Thinking about doing it, even though I was scared, I also had a bit of courage, so I ran back up. Standing in front of the open door of room 404 was like taking a gamble with no way out. Mustered up the courage to run into the house, first with the key on the table in his pocket and then running back to the closet to get his backpack. As soon as I opened the closet and touched the backpack, my heart stopped beating, because the room light suddenly went out. The power went out at this happy hour, don't joke like that. Darkness covered the entire room. Everything around me was so quiet that I didn't dare even breathe loudly because I was afraid that if I made a sound, the child would know where I was standing. Standing in the dark for a while, using all my senses to feel everything around me, I remembered that the door to the room had been open all along. What I need to do now is put on my backpack and run out quickly. Thinking of doing it, I grabbed my backpack and put it on my shoulder. I turned around and prepared to run quickly, but at this moment the ghosts crack. Cack. Sound rang out again. I stood frozen in the middle of the house, not daring to move. My eyes gradually got used to the darkness. I turned around and couldn't see her anywhere, so I ran to the door. Just after running 3 steps, I tripped over something on the floor. Before I could regain my composure, a cold hand grabbed my leg. I struggled to escape, but his hand held tighter. At this moment, the moans coming from its throat became more frequent and more plaintive. I struggled so hard that I finally got out. Running towards the door, I rushed to the stairs and ran down. As soon as I ran downstairs, I screamed in terror and fell backwards. Right before my eyes right now was a corpse, swinging in the air with a noose around its neck, and the other end tied to the railing upstairs. The corpse opened its eyes, glared at me, and slowly extended its hand towards me. So scared, I ran downstairs. Without giving the receptionist time to ask what was going on, I left the room fee and key on the table and ran straight out into the street. It was 3:30 a.m. Later, when I went to Thailand and became a monk, I told my teacher about this story. The teacher told me, "The souls of those people are the most pitiful souls, also the most terrifying souls. There are people who die and are reborn immediately. There are also people who stay in this world because of attachments. When they let go of attachments, they will be reborn in another life. But they are lost people, they deny the right to live and be human given by the Creator, so they cannot escape. Their positive fate has not yet ended, but they end it with their own hands. That is the cause and effect that they must endure. Their souls will have to stay in the place where they died, repeating their death day after day." I asked, "So when will they escape that suffering, sir?" The teacher said everything happens at its own time. At some point their positive number ends, depending on the happiness or karma they created from previous lives. They will be reborn or their souls will disappear into nothingness. That depends on their creation. Sometime after I returned to Vietnam, that motel changed ownership and was renovated. Everything around it changed a lot, so I couldn't find it again. When I went to ask about the people living nearby, I learned that there had been 2 lovers in that motel a long time ago, but the family objected, so the son forced his lover to drink herbicide, and then he also hanged himself. Died right there. So could it be that at that time those 2 people asked for help from me, but due to fear, due to lack of understanding, I did not care about them. The story ended like that. Every human being, when born as a human, is a privilege of the Creator. So do not, for any reason, take your own life, or senselessly take the lives of other living beings. Suicide is not liberation, but it is the beginning of another stage that is much more painful and miserable than the difficulties and challenges while alive. One piece of advice for everyone is that hotels, motels or public places are often areas with very heavy negative energy, and there is no one in charge, so you may accidentally encounter something you don't want to see. So if you happen to encounter them, the best thing for everyone to do is to quietly get out of there as quickly as possible. Devil cannot directly kill people, but if they can, they will follow you in the hope of escaping the place where their souls are bound. But if you stay with them for too long, your positive energy will be consumed, then illness and bad luck will be unavoidable, and this is the end of the story, everyone. If the story is good, please give me 1 like and 1 subscriber. I hope everyone has fun listening to the story. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.